Now, from September, we all know that the structure of the GRE paper has changed, right? The first section is AWA. There is just one essay now. Earlier, there were two essays that you had to write, but now you have just one essay. Then you have two verbal sections, verbal 1, verbal 2. Then you have two quant sections, quant 1, quant 2. What has changed in verbal? That the number of questions now are half, right? There are total of 27 questions in verbal. The first section will have 12 questions. The second section will have 15 questions. Okay, I can show you. Earlier there were around 20 questions in one verbal section. Now there are here on your screen, you can see, I hope you can see this.
Visible, sir.
It's visible. Now you can see that the shorter version is now available. The shorter version is now available, where in AWA there is one essay task that you have to complete in 30 minutes. In quant, you have total of 27 questions. These are spread over two sections and you have 47 minutes. And in verbal reasoning, you have total of 27 questions now, spread over two sections, and the total time that you have is 41 minutes. So the time for the GRE has now reduced from 3 hours 45 minutes to under 2 hours, that is 1 hour 58 minutes. You can see the last two columns of the shorter GRE general test. That is what you will be taking. And plus, if you look at the number of questions in verbal reasoning, out of total 27 questions, how many will you see here? It is in this table. How many questions will be in each section? So they are telling you that in quant section 1, you will have 12 questions, which you will have to complete in 21 minutes. In section 2, you have 15 questions, which you have to complete in 26 minutes. In verbal reasoning, the first section will have 12 questions, which you complete in 18 minutes. And the second section will have 15 questions, which you complete in 23 minutes. So 12 questions in the first section and 15 questions in the second section. Now these total 27 questions, they would be from three different areas. One is reading comprehension. The other one is text completion. And the third one is sentence equivalence. So out of these 27 questions, almost half of the questions, around 13 to 14 questions, would be from reading comprehension. The remaining half would be text completion and sentence equivalence. Okay, so you have around 1.5 minutes to solve each question on an average. You can check this table over here. Today, what we are going to do, we are going to start with the reading comprehension part of the verbal section. Okay, now reading comprehension is a challenging topic for many students because they are not in a reading habit. And almost half of your paper is based on reading comprehension. So we should carefully look at this section. We will take around 6-7 sessions for reading comprehension because we will discuss things and then we'll practice on them as well. Now, in your GRE, reading comprehension, it measures your ability to comprehend and to infer from the available passage. So there are two things you need to keep in mind over here. One, it measures your ability to comprehend, and it also measures your ability to infer from the available passage. These are two different things. Comprehend means that you understand things that you read, that is in front of you. That is easy. That is pretty easy, right? But the second thing that you have to do is that you are also required to infer from the available passage. Now, infer means that you have to understand even those things that are not written in the passage. And that is what makes it a little bit complex. So you have to do both. You have to comprehend as well as infer from the available passage. Had it just been a measure of your comprehension or what you understand from what you have read, then actually there would be no challenge there. The challenging part is the inference part. You have to read between the lines. You have to understand even those things which are not directly mentioned by the author in the passage, and that is what makes reading comprehension a little bit challenging. Now we all know that reading comprehension is going to be the most time consuming and it will require the most attention. Now students ask me how much time should we spend on a passage. So uh, I would suggest that you keep this in mind that per question you have around 2 minutes. You should keep this in your mind. So let's say there is a passage. If this passage has 3 questions, that means you have to solve this passage, including answering the questions within 6 minutes, not more than 6 minutes. These 6 minutes include the reading time, the time that you spend reading the passage, and the time that you spend answering these 3 questions. So, how many questions are there in the passage? Based on that, you can calculate how much time you can spend on one particular passage. If there are 2 questions, then around 4 minutes. If there are 4 questions, then around 8 minutes. So you have around 2 minutes. Why I'm saying 2 minutes? Because when you come to text completion and sentence equivalence, most of the times you will be able to solve text completion and sentence equivalence within a minute. So you can save some time from there and you can use that time for reading comprehension, which is time consuming. And because you have to read the passage, you have to understand the passage, you have to infer things, then you have to read the questions, you have to read all the 5 options, and then you have to select an answer. So that does require a lot of time. Okay. So just remember this, you have around 2 minutes per question. If you are not able to solve it within 2 minutes, then because there is no negative marks, my suggestion is that just make an intelligent guess and move to the next question. You can always come back and change your answer, but if you spend a lot of time on one particular question, then you will lose out on other questions that may be very, very easy. Right. Now, if you look at the sources, okay, what is going to be the length of the passages? Majority of the passages in the test are going to be short. They are going to be just 1 or 2 paragraphs in length. However, there can be 1 or 2 passages that can be several paragraphs long. I don't think they give you a passage of more than 3 paragraphs and around 6 questions. That is going to be, I think, the maximum that you will get from a single passage. And like I told you, typically about half of the questions in the verbal section will be based on passages. And the number of questions based on a given passage can range from 1 to 6. So if it is a lengthy passage, then they will give you 5, 6 questions from that passage. But generally, the shorter passages, they give you 3, 4 questions. And majority of the passages in the test are short. But yes, sometimes they give you lengthy passages as well. So we will take a look at both short passages as well as lengthy passages. Now, coming to the source, from where do they take these passages? What is the source? What are the subject areas that are covered? Before that, the question structure also. The questions that are put in front of you, there are three different ways in which they will place the question in front of you. Number one, they will give you a question and then they will give you five choices. If they give you five choices, then remember you have to select only one as your answer out of those five choices. Sometimes they will give you questions which will have not five but three choices. If a question has three choices, that means there can be more than one answer. Okay, so remember this difference. If there are five choices, only one is going to be the answer. If there are three choices, then more than one answer is possible. It's possible that all the three can be correct as the answer, two of them can be correct as the answer, or just one of them is going to be correct as the answer. And sometimes they will not give you any choices as at all. They will say, select a sentence in the passage. When they ask you to select a sentence in the passage, they don't give you any choices. In such a situation, you will go to the passage. Remember, the passage is always there available on the left hand side of the screen. The question keeps moving on the right hand side pane. The pane that is on the right hand side, the questions will keep moving, but the passage will always remain with you on the left hand side. So whenever you come to a question which asks you to select in the passage, then the passage is available on the left hand side of the screen. You will go to that particular line or sentence which you think is the answer. You will click on that line. When you click on that line, that particular line is highlighted, and then you can mark it, and then you can confirm it as your answer and move to the next question. So these are the three ways in which the questions would be structured. Five choices mean one answer. Three choices mean more than one answer possible. And sometimes there are no choices. That means you have to select the answer. You have to select a sentence in the passage. This is the structure. Okay, anybody has problem till now? You will see that the passages are drawn from the physical sciences, that is physics, biological sciences, biology, social sciences, the arts and humanities, and everyday topics. And they are based on material which is found in books and periodicals that are both academic and non-academic in nature. So you have lots of passages from physics, biology, social sciences like sociology, arts and humanities, literature, art, architecture. These are the areas from which they generally will source the passages. They do not give you passages based on chemistry. Okay. And you may be familiar with some of these subjects, but if you're not familiar with any subject, let's say you're not familiar with any social sciences or arts and humanities, then what will happen? Even if the passage is very, very simple, because you are not in the habit of reading such a material, then there's going to be a discomfort. Okay, you will face some discomfort. You will not be very, confident in that particular passage. So my suggestion is that if you are not already in a reading habit, you start reading on a wide, um, um, on a wide selection of subjects, especially those subjects which you are not very comfortable in. If you're already a student who's reading physics, then I think even if I give you a very difficult passage from physics, you will be able to understand something or the other from that particular passage. But the moment I give you a passage from art or literature, because you're not in the reading habit, you'll not be comfortable in that subject and you may face difficulties, even if the passage is very, very simple. To answer the questions, you need not be an expert in any of the subjects mentioned earlier. But yes, you need a general awareness of these topics. Why do you need a general awareness? You need a general awareness because it increases your comfort level. And RC is all about comfort level. The moment I give you a passage on a subject that you are already familiar with, your comfort level increases. But if I give you a very simple passage from a subject that you are not comfortable with, then there's a lot of discomfort. So you need to build general awareness of these topics. And the best way to build awareness is through consistent reading on diverse subjects. You need to start reading, and especially you need to read those subjects which you are not already reading. So this is a suggested reading list. For example, for literature, I think you can start with the books of Ernest Hemingway. Two very famous books, The Old Man and the Sea and A Farewell to Arms, whichever or whichever you want to read. Then if you want to read about, history of mankind, then there's a very famous book called Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari. And then the same author has written other books also, like Homo Deus, and then Ideas for the 21st Century. So, very good book. All these books are very, very good. They tell you about our history. Homo Deus tells you about the future of mankind. And the third book, Ideas for the 21st Century, tells you what exactly are things that we can do to improve our lives. So very, very good books, all three of them. Again, literature, if you want to challenge yourself, then you should read the books by Salman Rushdie. Any book by Salman Rushdie, over here I have mentioned his most famous book, which also has won the Booker Award, which is Midnight's Children. If you want an introduction to philosophy, if you when you pick up any philosophy book, if you think that it's very difficult, if you want an introduction to philosophy, then the book is Sophie's World by Jostein Gaarder. It is like an introduction to philosophy, where the author is teaching philosophy to a 14-year-old girl. So whatever is written in a very plain and simple manner. And once you have read this book, then you'll know a lot of things about philosophy. Then again, from literature, you have George Orwell, two very famous books, Animal Farm and 1984. Now, both these books, Animal Farm and 1984, they are written in very plain, simple language, but they actually are uh, metaphorical. They talk about the pitfalls of communism. Animal Farm talks about the pitfalls of communism, and 1984 talks about the surveillance state, how those in power, they will control us. So whatever George Orwell had written almost 50, 60 years back, that is what is happening right now. That is what is happening right now, because all the big companies, the governments, they know everything about us. They can control us because they know everything about us. So these are very good books. If you want to develop patience, because reading requires patience. When you are reading, especially material that is little bit tricky for you, it is little bit difficult for you, then we generally tend to give up. If we don't understand one paragraph, then we get frustrated and we stop reading. But that should not be the case. Even if you don't understand something, then you should persist, because if you persistently read, then probably in the first reading you will understand just 10% of what is written there. But when you pick up the second book, then your understanding will get better. So you need to have patience in order to read material that is challenging. And one book that can really test your patience and that can really, improve your patience is book by Dostoevsky called Crime and Punishment. So it is fictional. Okay, this book is fictional, but the way it is written, it develops a lot of patience in you. And by the time you complete this book, I think you'll be a new person. So it's a definite read. There are other books by Dostoevsky as well, but his most famous book is Crime and Punishment. If you want to read Indian authors, then you have Pankaj Mishra. His very famous book called An End to Suffering. It talks about the relevance of Gautam Buddha or the relevance of Buddha's teachings. So a person who walked on this earth 2000 years back, whatever he said, whatever he taught, is it relevant to still date till date? So again, this is a kind of philosophy, which is again difficult to read. It is not very easy to read, but it's a very good book. Uh, all the current issues, all the current issues that India is facing, you can read about them in the book called The Algebra of Infinite Justice by Arundhati Roy. Okay, she explains, this is a collection of essays through which she explains all the different things that are happening, and lots of things can be eye openers. For example, we are very happy when dams are built. We think that a lot of electricity will be there available. It will help in irrigation. It will help to light the households. But with all the data that is published by the government of India, Arundhati Roy shows us that all dams are useless. They displace millions of people and they don't even work at 20% capacity. So one of the topics is about dams. Then she also writes about Naxalism. Who are the Naxalites? Why they have picked up weapons? Why? What are they fighting for? So these are lots of issues that she dwells upon in the book Algebra of Infinite Justice. Then another Indian author who has written a very famous book is Gurucharan Das, and this book is called The Difficulty of Being Good. So this is kind of philosophical. The question is, should you be good? Does it pay to be good? Why should you be good? We see that all bad things happen to good people. Then should you be good? So Gurucharan Das tries to explain to you what is the difficulty in being good, whether you should be good or whether you should be bad. And for context, he uses the Mahabharata. So he uses Mahabharata as the context to explain to you whether you should be good it's or you should be bad. So this is also a good book. It is philosophical. Now, another good source that I can suggest is publications by Oxford University Press. Now, Oxford University Press, they have short introductions on many subjects. Okay. For example, one of the most famous books is Sociology, a very short introduction by Steve Bruce. Publication is Oxford University Press. So these are very short books, just 60-65 pages, that's it. And they provide you a short introduction on different subjects. And these short introductions are available for 400, 500 subjects. You name it and they have it. Sociology, psychology, philosophy, history, literature, literary criticism, art, Indian history, American history, all subjects are covered. So these are short introductions and they are full of information. However, they are not easy read. Okay, because in just 60-65 pages, he has to they explain everything that is covered in that particular subject. That is why every single line is very important. When you read the short introductions, every single line, every single paragraph is full of information. You cannot skip and skim, you cannot rush through. When you read the short introductions, you will have to be very slow, and only when you have understood a paragraph should you move to the next one, because they're very informative. In fact, these short introductions, they are so full of information, they're so informative that there are many exams that have picked up many paragraphs from these introductions, and they have turned them into RC, reading comprehension passages for competitive exams. You must be aware of the MBA exam CAT. You must be aware, isn't it? Are you aware?
Yes, sir.
Now, CAT has used this book. Sociology, a very short introduction, till date, 6 times. 6 times they have picked up paragraphs from this particular book, and they made it into our passage for CAT exam. Such is the importance of these books. And these books are very, very informative. They're very informative, but they're very difficult to read. Why they're difficult to read? Because in short, they tell you everything about such diverse subjects. So if you can lay your hands on these books, you visit any library, or you make a Google search, whichever subject you want to read, you can look for the short introductions, but please don't rush when you are reading these books. Sometimes, in order to understand these books, you may need around 1 month, 2 months to complete just 60 pages, right? So that this is also a very good source. If you're looking for online resources, then online resources, you can go to the Guardian and the New Yorker. Now, when you go to these sites, the Guardian and New Yorker, I'm not asking you to read the current news. I'm asking you to read the columns on society, culture, women, arts, because these are very challenging topics. Initially, you may face a lot of difficulty in understanding what is written there. But if you persist, if you make it a habit that twice a week I'm going to visit either the Guardian or the New Yorker online, and I'm going to pick up randomly any one article from the arts column or the culture column, and you continue this practice for a long time, you will see that you will understand lots of things on these subjects. Other resources are bbc.com/future, New York Times, ian.com, smithsonianmac.com, scientificamerican.com, realclearscience.com, The Economist, Forbes or ForbesIndia.com. Both will do. These are some online resources. Now, this is not an exhaustive list, and whatever material we discussed, they may not be very easy for you to read. But if you persist, if this is the kind of material that you start reading on a daily basis before going to sleep, or if instead of spending your time on social media, if you read even 10-15 pages from this material, then it is going to have a huge impact on you. But if the impact takes time, it takes time, but it will definitely have a big impact on you. What are the tips for answering the questions? There are 2-3 things that you should definitely do. Number one, whenever you read anything from now on, you should try to find the story. Find the story means you should be able to summarize the entire thing into 1 or 2 sentences. So, just like when you go and watch a movie, you sit there in the movie hall for 2 hours, 3 hours. When the movie is over, I think you can send a message to your friend and tell him or her what that movie was all about. That message will be just in 1 or 2 lines, right? So if you can summarize the entire movie in 1 or 2 lines, the same thing you have to develop for reading also. Whenever you read any article, whenever you read any passage, whenever you read any material, you read any chapter, try to send a message to yourself. On WhatsApp, now there's a facility of sending the message to yourself. You must be aware. So send a message to yourself or to your friend telling him or her or telling yourself what that passage was all about. Restrict yourself to one or two sentences. If you are able to construct that sentence, if you're able to send that message, that means you have understood the passage. If you're not able to send that message, that means you need to revisit the material because you have not really understood. So whether you have understood the passage or not understood the passage, how will you find out? By sending that message. If you don't want to send that message, then write a summary in your notebook. The summary should not exceed one or two sentences. That's it. If you can do that, that means you have understood the passage. Otherwise, you need to revisit. Okay, this is a good way. This is a good way to find out. For example, when you watch a movie, then I think you can send a message to your friend, and and you can tell your friend that, okay, this is revenge drama. This movie is a revenge drama. That's it. This movie is a love triangle. That's it. That means you've understood the crux of the movie. The same thing you should develop for reading material as well. Okay. For example, if you ask me, can you write a summary of that novel Animal Farm? Animal Farm by George Orwell. I can say that yes, Animal Farm is a satire. It is kind of a comment on communism. We all believe that communism works perfectly because there's equality for everyone. Everybody is given equal rights, but the reality is very different. Reality is very different. So it is kind of a satire on communism. So that is all that you need to do. This is the first thing. Second thing is that whenever you're reading any material, always pay attention to words, to some words that are called transition words, because these words, these transition words, they will indicate to you the relationship of each paragraph to the next. What is going to happen next? If you start by telling me why a theory is wrong, and then you change the paragraph and then you use the word likewise, this signifies to me that after the word likewise, you are going to continue in the same direction. You will continue to tell me all the things that are wrong with this theory. Because likewise shows similarity between paragraphs. So to get a bird's eye view of each paragraph, you need to keep your eye out for these signal words, because then you will understand, okay, the first and second paragraphs, they are talking about the pros of this theory. What are the advantages of this theory? And then he starts the third paragraph with the word nonetheless. So the third paragraph changes the direction, and the third paragraph is talking about the disadvantages of this theory. So if you get any question that is about the disadvantage of this theory, you know exactly where to go. You know that your answer will be from the third paragraph. It cannot be from the first two paragraphs. So to get a bird's eye view of what is happening in each paragraph, it's important that you keep your eye out for these signals. Words like likewise, however, although, nonetheless, furthermore, moreover. And number third, you need to accustom yourself to the type of questions that you are likely to face. What are the kind of questions you're likely to face? What is the demand placed by those questions? What kind of answers are suitable for these questions? That is something which you need to understand in detail. So, in a lot of detail, we will discuss the kind of questions you are likely to face, how to answer these questions. So, if you broadly divide the questions, then you will see that in your exam, there are 6 different kinds of questions that you will encounter. Main idea, primary purpose questions, or questions that ask you to suggest a suitable title. Then you have something called supporting idea questions. Then you have inference-based questions, application questions, tone and attitude questions, and finally, organization technique questions. These are the 6 question types which you will encounter. Now, the good news is that majority of the questions, 99% of the questions are going to be from the first 3 categories. The remaining 3, they are not common. Okay, now and then you will get a question from these 3 areas, but they're not very common. So let's say out of 6, 7 paragraphs, one of the paragraph will have one question which asks you what is the tone of the author. Out of 6, 7 paragraphs, one of the question will ask you one question that is based on application or organization technique. Even if you get these questions, at the most you will get one question only. There cannot be multiple application questions, multiple tone attitude questions, or multiple organization technique questions. At the most, one question only. That's it. So your main focus should be on the first 3 question types. If you look at the first 3 question types, you cannot get more than one question on main idea. What is the main idea of the author? What is the primary purpose? Or suggest a suitable title. You cannot get more than one question. However, if you come to supporting idea questions, you will get multiple questions. Inference-based questions, you will get multiple questions. So your main focus should be on the first 3 question types, because majority of the times you will see it is these 3 question types that you will encounter. Every single passage, almost every single passage will have these 3 questions. The remaining 3, application, tone, attitude, and organization technique, they're not so frequent. They're not so frequent, they're not very common, but yes, now and then you will come across these questions. At the most one, that's it. So we have to be prepared for them as well. So we will discuss them as well with the help of examples. Is this clear for you? Please take a look and tell me till now if there is anything you did not understand.
So can there be no question from the list of last 3 topics?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, majority of the passages will not have the questions on the based on the last 3. I told you they're not very common. Now and then, I mean, let's say there are 6 out of 6, 7 passages. One of them will have one question on organization technique, or one of them can have one question on tone. In fact, tone and attitude questions till date, even though in all the practice material they provide you with tone and attitude questions, we generally don't see these kind of questions. But yes, we should be prepared, isn't it? So we'll keep our main focus on the first 3 question types, but we'll also discuss the last 3 as well. Okay, remember this.
Sir,
Yes.
in one GRD paper, there'll just be one passage, right?
No.
No.
One GRE paper, there will be just one passage. No, you will have multiple passages.
Okay.
Multiple
Like,
passages.
as in how many?
See, you have verbal 1, okay, and you have verbal 2, right? So
No, sir, I
verbal
meant
1
from
has,
reading comprehension.
sorry?
I meant for reading comprehension.
No, not one. There will be multiple
Okay, sir.
multiple passages. Now see, I'll tell you how. Let's say there are 12 questions in the first verbal section, and there are 15 questions in the second verbal section, right? What I will do, I can give you 3 passages. 2 questions each. Okay. I will give you 3 passages, 2 questions each. That's possible. The remaining 6 questions I will give you from text completion and sentence equivalence. So 12 questions covered. Or what I can do, I can give you 2 passages, 3 questions each. That's also possible. So you have to be prepared for multiple passages. Don't think that there'll be just one passage. No, you should be prepared for 4-5 passages. When I give you 15 questions, I don't think they will give you less than 3 passages. They will definitely give you less than 3, around 3 passages. But yes, the passages are going to be short. Okay.
So 3 passages for one section, because there'll be 2 sections for verbal.
No, they have not clarified how many passages they will give you. That is not defined. Okay. What they have defined is that you will get 12 questions.
Okay.
Now it's possible. Wait, let me just share the whiteboard with you, because all kinds of permutation combination is possible.
True.
Okay. Now what I can do in the verbal ones, the first section, because there are 12 questions, I can give you 3 passages. Each passage will have 4 questions each. That's possible. I may not give you even one single TC and SC question in the first verbal section. Then I take you to the second verbal section where there are 15 questions. Out of these 15 questions, what I do is that I give you 8 questions of text completion and sentence equivalence, and the remaining 7 questions I can spread it over 3 passages. That's possible. I will give you 3 passages. One passage I will give you 3 questions. Another passage I will give you 2 questions. Another passage I'll give you 2 questions. So anything is possible. Okay, so they have not defined how many passages they will give you. They can give you 6 passages. They can give you only 2 passages. I can give you just 1 passage. It's possible. I will give you 2 passages that will have 6 questions each. I'll give you 2 lengthy passages that can have 6 questions each. That's possible. But yes, generally we will see that half, if the total number of questions are 27, then they will spread it in such a way that around 13 questions would be from text completion and sentence equivalence, and around 14 questions would be from RC. So 8 questions, I think this will not work. They will give you around 12 questions over here, and then 3 questions over here. I can give you 3 passages. I can ask you one question each. That's possible. So all kinds of permutation combinations possible. Okay. Yeah.
For reading comprehension, is it possible to get more than one passage? And is it possible to get more than one passage on reading comprehension?
Yes. Okay. That is what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Multiple passages. You can get multiple passages. And you will get multiple passages. Don't be under the impression that you will get only one passage. No. You have to be prepared for 4-5 passages. Okay. In both the sections together, you have to be prepared for around 5 passages. But yes, these passages are going to be short. But there will be multiple passages. Don't think that they will give you only one passage. No. Right?
Okay, sir.
This is what I'm telling you. You can see there are multiple passages here. Okay. So I was saying that what kind of questions you will see on your screen. You can see we need to focus on the first 3 question types, because these are the questions that you will generally see majority of the times. The remaining 3, they are not so frequent. Okay. So today, what we will do is, today we will discuss the first 2 question types. How to find out the main idea and how to find out supporting idea questions. or how to find out the answers for supporting idea questions. Let's see what we can cover. First, let us take a look at something called main idea. What is the main idea of the author? What is the primary purpose of the author? Or suggest a suitable title for the passage. Now, these questions, they test you on your ability to recognize the purpose of the author. What does he want to prove? What does he want to say? What is the passage about? Why has he written this passage? Okay. You know, I told you when I told you how to answer questions, I told you that when you read any material, you should develop a habit of writing a summary. That summary which you have written is actually the main idea. Okay, that summary which you have written is actually the main idea. So ideally, when you read any material, when you read any passage, then whatever summary you have written, that is the main idea. But if you are in a situation where you do not understand the passage perfectly, you're not very sure, then there are some shortcuts that you can use to find out the main idea. What are these shortcuts? Again, let me use the whiteboard. If you want to find out what is the main idea, then there are some shortcuts. Ideally, you should not be using these shortcuts. Ideally, when you read the passage, then you should be able to summarize the passage, and that summary is the main idea. But if you are in a situation where you don't know what is the main idea, you don't really understand the passage, but you still want to mark an answer, then you need to check whether it is a short passage or whether it is a long passage. Short passage means one or at the most two paragraphs, not more than that. Long passage means two or more paragraphs. Now see, if you want to find out what is the main idea and the passage is a short one, now because it's a short passage, that means the author does not have much time. So he will not talk about different kinds of things, or he will not give you any extraneous information. He will straight away come to the point. So if you want to find out what is the main idea, you should focus on the first 2-3 lines of the passage. Focus on the first 2-3 lines of the passage. That will tell you what is the main idea. Because the author will immediately tell you, this is what I want to prove, and then he will prove it. However, this is not true for long passages. When the passage is long, then the author has some time. So he will not immediately come to the point. Author will first try to create a background. Author will try to talk about lots of other things. And then slowly, steadily, he will bring you to the main idea. So if it is a long passage, then to find out the main idea, you should focus on the last lines of the first paragraph. Generally, you should focus on the last lines of the first paragraph because the author initially, he will discuss the other things and then slowly, steadily, he will bring you to the main idea. Now, this is one of the ways. If this does not work, the second thing that you need to check, whether the passage is short or the passage is long, if there is any statement and it ends in a question mark, if there is any statement which ends in a question mark, you should focus a lot on that statement because there is a very high probability that that statement which ends in a question mark will hold your hand and take you to the main idea. This is another thing which you need to carefully check. And the third thing which works a lot for both short passages and long passages is that if after doing all the things you don't understand what is the main idea, then one thing which works a lot is that you very carefully review the first and the last lines of each paragraph. Very carefully read the first and the last lines of each paragraph. What will you do? When you are reading the first and the last lines of each paragraph, look for something which is common in the majority of the lines. Right? So you will see that there will be something which is common in the majority of the lines, if not all of them. Then in majority of them, you will see that there is some common thread, something that is very common in these lines. And that thing which is common is actually the main idea. This works a lot. This one works a lot. So let's say there are 4 paragraphs. Okay. If there are 4 paragraphs, then what do? That means you review 8 lines, the first and the last lines. If you review, you are actually reviewing 8 lines. You will see that out of these 8 lines, if not all, there would be around 5-6 lines. The majority of the lines, they will either use a common word or a common idea. That common word, that common idea is actually the main idea of the passage. So it's possible that in one of the lines, he will use the word evolution. In another line, he can use the word procreation. In another line, he can use the word birth. So whether he's using evolution, procreation, or birth, idea is same. Idea is the same, right? And I told you that it's possible that the idea you do not find in all the 8 lines. No, you will not find it in all the 8 lines. But yes, in majority of them. In majority of the lines, you will find a common idea, a common thread, and that thing which is common is going to be the main idea. Did you understand?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is how you come to the main idea. If you are in a situation where you don't understand the passage, then if you want to find out what is the main idea, then you should be able to use these things. Now, there are other things which I need to discuss in main idea, but before that, let us check on a short passage. Let me just take you back to the PPT. Now, like I said, if you want to locate the main idea, what should you do? Review the first and the last sentence of each paragraph. These will give you a quick overview of the passage. While you are reviewing these sentences, look out for something that is common to these sentences. Because that thing which is common, that is the main idea. For example, let us say this is a short passage. Okay, this is from your ETS database. This is a short passage. This passage is from science. Now, a person like me, whenever I read something which is scientific in nature, my mind does not work. I don't have a scientific temperament, so I don't understand passages that are based on science. Even if this passage can be very easy for you, but it may not be easy for me, right? Now I want to find out what is the primary purpose of this passage. I know I will not really understand this passage. The first thing that I will do is that I will check, is there any statement that ends in a question mark? No. When we quickly scan, we see that there is no statement that ends in a question mark. Now what I'll do is that I will carefully review the first and the last lines. I will look for something that is common, and then I'll check whether I can find the answer to the main idea question. The first line says the transfer of heat and water vapor from the ocean to the air above it depends on a disequilibrium at the interface of the water and the air. Okay. Then in the end, he says, when the wind makes waves, it transfers important amounts of energy that is therefore not available to provide turbulence. So I think he's discussing transfer, how it happens, what does it depend on. These are things that he's discussing. That is the idea that I get from what I have read. If you ask me to mark an answer, what is the primary purpose? Will I mark number A? Resolve a controversy. When you read the first two lines, do you think that there is some controversy that he is discussing?
No, sir.
There is no controversy that he is discussing. He's simply stating how transfer happens. So there is no controversy he's discussing. When you read these two lines, do you think that he is confirming some research findings? He never mentions any research findings in these lines. So how can he confirm these research findings? So that also will not work. Is he outlining a theory or hypothesis? Is he outlining a theory or hypothesis? How will you know that he is outlining a theory or hypothesis? Because if he outlines a theory or hypothesis, he will tell you whose theory or hypothesis this is.
A background on it.
Yeah, he will say, according to so and so, according to my studies, I have found that. So the theory and hypothesis, this will generally happen when he tells you whose theory or hypothesis this is. So nothing of that sort is happening here. C also will not work. Is he classifying various observations? That means he made 4 different observations, A, B, C, D. He's saying number A belongs to the category X, number B belongs to the category Y, number C belongs to the category X, number D belongs to the category Z. Is that what he's doing when you read the first two for these two lines? No, that is not what he's doing. So number E also will not work. So what is it doing? He's telling you about transfer. What does it depend on and how it happens? So he's describing an event. He's describing a phenomenon. And that is why we can come to the answer B. So if we have made a guess, but it's an intelligent guess that we are making. Did you understand this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Please check. Now, remember, how do you know whether he is outlining a theory or a hypothesis? Whenever he is outlining a theory or hypothesis, he will always tell you, according to so and so. That means he will tell you whose theory this is, whose hypothesis this is. If it is his own hypothesis or theory, he will say, my studies have shown, I believe that. He will use these kind of words. Okay, so you will generally see that main idea questions are not very difficult. Main idea questions are not very difficult. But there are traps there. How do they make it difficult? By building some traps. So the next thing that you need to understand very, very carefully for main idea question is what are these traps? How to identify these traps? Because if you learn how to identify these traps, then I don't think you'll face any problem in main idea questions. What are these traps? They are something called understating the main idea and overstating the main idea. Right now, you just need to understand that you have to beware of extreme words. Answer choices that stress specifics tend to understate the main idea, whereas choices that go beyond the scope of the passage tend to overstate the main idea. So these are two traps. They are called understating the main idea. And the second one is called overstating the main idea. So for main idea questions, whenever you are evaluating any option, you will have to check, is that option understating the main idea or is it overstating the main idea? If it is understating or overstating the main idea, you can eliminate it. If it is not understating or overstating the main idea, then that option can be your answer. What is the meaning of understating the main idea and overstating the main idea? That is something which I will help you understand with a very simple example. Let's say this is a very simple passage. It says, the passage says A is better than B because, number one, A is more stable than B. Number two, B, unlike A, is not malleable. Number three, A shows more diversity in its uses. And number four, A is more easily found than B. Right? So he tells you why A is better than B, and he mentions in 4 paragraphs, he gives you 4 different reasons. The question is, what is the main purpose of the author? Can I mark number 1 as the answer? The main purpose is to prove that since B is not malleable and is not as easily found as A, it should not be preferred over A.
So he has only given 2 of the above statements, so I think it shouldn't be this one.
Now, what is happening in number 1? What he does is that he picks up 2 specific points from the passage. So, are these 2 the only reasons why A should be preferred over B? Are these 2 the only reasons? Tell me. According to the passage,
sir.
according to the passage, there are 4 reasons why A is better than B. So what you are doing over here is that you are sticking to 2 things, specific things from the passage. So it is, you are showing me an incomplete picture. You are showing me an incomplete picture. This is not the whole picture. Because the whole picture talked about 4 different reasons. So how can you decide that these 2 are more important than the other 2? So you are showing me an incomplete picture by picking up specific information from the passage, and you are trying to pass it off as the main idea. So whenever any option, it picks up some specific thing from the passage, it will never show you the complete picture. It will always show you the incomplete picture. And such options cannot be your answer because we say they are understating the main idea. Understating the main idea means they are showing you an incomplete picture. The main idea has more than what is mentioned in this option. Do you understand what is the meaning of understating?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you look at option number 3, the main purpose is to prove that since A is more stable, malleable, and diverse, it should be preferred over B. Can I mark number 3 as the answer?
Sir, again, the author hasn't, the person hasn't given all of the above 4
Exactly.
points.
Again, even though he picks up 3 of the points, But again, this is not the complete picture. Who is he to decide that these 3 points are more important than the fourth point? Perhaps the fourth one is more important. So because he has not included all the points, he's showing me an incomplete picture, and that is why number 3 also is understating the main idea. Did both of you understand what is the meaning of understating the main idea?
Yes, sir.
Whenever the author picks up some specific information from the passage and tries to pass it off as the entire picture, that is understating. So if from the complete movie you say that this movie, it was talking about the love between two people, but the movie was not just talking about the love, it was also talking about the struggle and the revenge. So, but you stick to only one of the points. That will be understating the main idea. And more than understating, you will see that majority of the options that can be eliminated, they will be overstating the main idea. Now, what is the meaning of overstating the main idea? If you look at option number 2, the main idea is to prove that A is the best alternative available. Now, the problem is that if you want to say that A is the best alternative available, you will need information from outside the passage. Why? Why will you need information from outside the passage? Because this passage only tells you about two of the alternatives, A and B, and makes a comparison between A and B. If you want to say that A is the best alternative available, you need to know, are there other options available? Are there other options like C, D, E, F available? If these are available, then you need to compare them with A and B. Only then you can say that A is the best alternative available. The passage never says that only two options are available, A and B. The passage is just making a comparison between A and B. So if you want to prove that A is the best alternative available, you will need information from outside the passage. What information will you need? Are other options available? If they are available, how do they compare with A and B? Only then you can say that A is the best alternative available. So any option that requires information from outside the passage, we say it goes beyond the scope of the passage and it is overstating the main idea. It is overstating the main idea. Did you understand?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Similarly, if you look at option number 4, the main purpose is to prove that B is the least preferable option. Now, if you want to prove that B is the least preferable option, again, you need to know, are there other options available? How can you say that B is the least preferable option? You will need information from outside the passage. Are other options available? If they are available, you will have to compare them with B. Only then you can say that B is the least preferable option. So again, number 4 is overstating the main idea. Now remember this, any option that has an extreme word like best, least, all, of all, always, most, any option that has these extreme words, it is definitely overstating the main idea. Remember that. So you can eliminate that option. So the moment you see any of these words in any of the option, you know that this option is overstating. You can remove that option. Okay, so that is why it was written. That is why it was written over here. Beware of extreme words. Never mark options that have extreme words. Why? Because what do? they tend to overstate the main idea. However, that does not mean that I can overstate the main idea only by using an extreme word. No, even without using an extreme word, I can overstate the main idea. I'll show you. I'll show you. I may not use I may not use an extreme word, but I can overstate. For example, in this particular question, if I give you an option, the main idea is to prove number 5 that C is a better option than A and B. Can you mark number 5 as the answer for this question?
So there
I have not,
isn't. No,
I have
sir.
not used any extreme word.
No, sir.
Can I say that the main idea is to prove that C is a better option than A and B? You will say no. Why no? Because nothing has been mentioned about C. If I want to know whether C is a better option than A and B, then I need information from outside. So number 5 option is also overstating. Without using an extreme word, it is overstating. But yes, if an option is using an extreme word, then immediately you know it is overstating. Did you get my point? Did you understand this?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So again, let us revisit. Beware of extreme words. Those answer choices that stress on specifics, what do? They understate the main idea, whereas those choices that go beyond the scope of the passage, they will overstate the main idea. Remember this. Now let us see how it works. I am going to discuss a passage that is slightly difficult. Okay, so I will help you with that passage right now. What does this passage say? This passage says, Jean Wagner's most enduring contribution to the study of Afro-American poetry is his insistence that it be analyzed in a religious as well as secular frame of reference. Okay, so what is the meaning of this? There's a person called Jean Wagner. Jean Wagner has made a contribution to the study of Afro-American poetry. And what does Jean Wagner say? He insists that whenever you analyze it, whenever you study Afro-American poetry, look at it from a religious as well as a secular frame of reference. That means whenever you analyze or whenever you study Afro-American poetry, look at it from both the angles. Look at it from a religious angle as well as a non-religious angle. Secular means non-religious. So that is what Jean Wagner is saying. Whenever you study Afro-American poetry, you need to look at it from both the angles, religious as well as secular. Then the author says, the appropriateness of such an approach may seem self-evident for a tradition commencing with spirituals and owing its early forms, rhythms, vocabulary, and evangelical fervor to Western hymnals. So according to the author, such an approach, that means whatever Jean Wagner is saying, it is appropriate. That means the author also believes that yes, whenever you study or analyze Afro-American poetry, look at it from both religious as well as secular angle. So whatever Jean Wagner is saying, it is appropriate. Why? Why it is appropriate? He's saying it is self-evident. Nobody has to explain it to you. Because Afro-American poetry is a tradition that actually starts with things that are religious. It starts with spirituals. Spirituals are religious songs. So the very basis on which Afro-American poetry is based is actually religious songs. And if you look at the forms, the rhythms, the vocabulary, the evangelical fervor, all these things that you see in Afro-American poetry, all of them come from Western hymnals. All of them come from hymns. Hymnals means hymns,
Songs.
songs in praise of God, religious songs. Veslin is the name of a place. So the hymns that were sung at this place, those religious songs, they are the foundation on which Afro-American poetry is based. If you look at the form, the rhythm, the vocabulary, all these things that you see in Afro-American poetry, all of them come from religion. The evangelical fervor, evangelical means preaching. The excitement with which you preach. Fervor means the excitement, enthusiasm. Fervor means enthusiasm. Evangelical means the preaching. The preaching enthusiasm which you see in Afro-American poetry, all of them comes from spirituals and hymns. That means the very foundation of Afro-American poetry is religion. And that is why he's asking you to analyze Afro-American poetry from both a religious and a non-religious, that is secular angle. Did you understand the first paragraph?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Now, he says, second paragraph, he says, but before Wagner, a secular outlook that analyzed Black poetry solely within the context of social, political and social protest was dominant in the field. Now, before Jean Wagner, whenever people analyze Black poetry, they would look at it only and only from a secular angle. They would never look at it from a religious angle. They will only look at it from the political and social angle. Political and social means secular, non-religious. Such a this was dominant. People before Jean Wagner, whenever people analyzed Black poetry, they never looked at it from a religious angle. They only looked at it from a secular angle. They only looked at it from a political and social angle. Now, political and social means non-religious, secular. It is Wagner who first demonstrated the fusion of racial and religious feelings in Afro-American poetry. So Wagner is the first person who says that no, there is a fusion. You will find both religious as well as racial. Racial means secular. Non-religious, religious as well as non-religious feelings in Afro-American poetry. Both of them are there. And according to Wagner, both these two, they actually form a symbiotic union. Symbiotic union means they form a union in which they give and take each other. They benefit from the presence of each other. And you will see in Afro-American poetry, many times religious feelings are applied to racial issues, and racial problems are projected onto a metaphysical plane. Metaphysical means spiritual. Lot of religious feelings are applied to racial issues, and lots of racial problems, they are explained in terms of religion. So you see a union of secular and religious. And then he gives you an example also. Wagner found this most eloquently illustrated in the Black spiritual. Now, Wagner proves his point by giving you an illustration or example. He gives you an example of the Black spiritual. The Black spiritual is the religious song sung by the Black people. What happens in a Black spiritual? In the Black spiritual, you see that people express their desire for freedom in this world. People want to be free in this world. This is secular. And they also want salvation in the next life. This is religious. That means when they die, when they get the next life, they want salvation. And both these ideas, they are inextricably intertwined. Inextricably means they cannot be pulled apart. They are intertwined, they're blended. They are so thoroughly blended that you cannot separate them. So both things that are secular and religious you will find in Afro-American poetry. In fact, he gives you examples of black spirituals as well. Did you understand?
Yes, sir.
Now, the question is, what is the primary purpose of the passage? Option number A. The primary purpose is to contrast the theories of Jean Wagner with those of other contemporary critics. Does he want to contrast the theories of Jean Wagner with other contemporary critics?
No, sir. He has not talked about any other
Do
person
we
in this.
do we know about any other contemporary critics?
No,
You know
sir.
what is the meaning of contemporary? Contemporary means
No.
living at the same time. Living at the same time. So we are contemporaries of Mr. Narendra Modi, but we are not contemporaries of Mahatma Gandhi and Indira Gandhi. So we are contemporaries of Narendra Modi. We are living in the same era, in the same period in which Narendra Modi is the Prime Minister of India. So first of all, do we know about any contemporary critic? Is there any contemporary critic that we know of?
No, sir.
Whatever people we know of, they were before Wagner. The second paragraph says before Wagner. So these people, whatever these people are mentioned, they lived before Wagner. They are not contemporaries. So if you want to contrast the theories of John Wagner with those of other contemporary critics, you will need information from outside the passage. What information will you need? Are there other contemporary critics? If there are other contemporary critics, what are their theories? And then you will have to contrast their theories with the theories of John Wagner. And that is why, because number E will require information from outside the passage, that is why we can say it is overstating the main idea, even though it does not use an extreme word. Did you understand, Sherpa, what happened?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is this clear to you, Amit?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. It's clear.
Why it is overstating? What about number B? The primary purpose of the passage is to document the influence of John Wagner on the development of Afro-American poetry. Did John Wagner have influence on the development of Afro-American poetry?
No, so there's no talk about how he has actually helped in the
Now,
development.
did John Wagner help in the development of Afro-American poetry? We know that he made a contribution to the study of Afro-American poetry, right? Did he help in the development of Afro-American poetry? We don't know. Perhaps he did. But to know this, whether he helped in the development of Afro-American poetry, we will need information from outside. Only then we can mark number B. And because we need information from outside, that is why this is also overstating the main idea. Okay? Number C. The primary purpose of the passage is to explain the relevance of John Wagner's work to the study of Afro-American religion. Can I mark number C as the answer? Should I mark number C as the answer? Tell me, please.
Sir, it was not his work. It was, I think, his analysis of Afro-American poetry.
Yeah, so
No, sir, not C, I think.
why? It was his work. He studied. It was John Wagner's work. Can I mark number C as the answer?
No, so I can give you an example. In the second paragraph, last three lines, he says the author says that Wagner found his most elegantly illustrated in the black spiritual. So it was his analysis, not his work.
Analysis and work mean the same. Analysis, study, work, all of them mean the same.
So I think another point could be because in the first, you can see in the first line of the first paragraph that Wagner's most enduring contribution to the study of The Afro-American poetry. It's not saying religion or anything.
Exactly. Why we cannot mark number C is because number C is talking about Afro-American religion and not poetry. Did John Wagner also study Afro-American religion? We don't know. If we want to know, then and whether his work is relevant to Afro-American religion or not, we will need information from outside the passage. And that is why this option is also overstating the main idea. Now, all these words, his work, his study, his analysis, they mean the same. They mean the same. The problem is not with these words. The problem is with the word Afro-American religion. He studied Afro-American poetry. Whether he studied Afro-American religion or not, we don't know. It's possible that he also studied Afro-American religion, but for that we will need information from outside the passage. And that is why number C cannot be correct. What about D? The primary purpose is to indicate the importance of John Wagner's analysis of Afro-American poetry. So the author is trying to tell you that whatever analysis John Wagner has done of Afro-American poetry, it is important. Can I mark number D as the answer?
Looks like true, sir, because
Yes.
he has talked
Yes,
about
number D is right.
Afro-American poetry
So
only.
author is calling it appropriate. So author is saying whatever analysis John Wagner did of Afro-American poetry, it is appropriate. So number D is correct. There is nothing wrong in number D. But what happens to number E? Can I not say the primary purpose of the passage is to present the contributions of John Wagner to the study of Black spirituals? Is this passage only about the Black spirituals?
No, sir.
Black spiritual is just one part of Afro-American poetry, isn't it? Black spiritual, he is giving you an illustration, and for the illustration, he is using black spiritual. Can an example become the main idea? Tell me. Can an
No, sir.
example become the main idea? You give examples to prove a point. So can the example become the main idea? Not possible. So what is happening in number E is that you are understating the main idea because you're picking up something specific mentioned in the passage. You are picking up an example that was mentioned in the passage and you are trying to pass it off as the main idea. Okay? So see,
Clear, sir.
when you look at it from the angle of overstating and understating, then you can eliminate all the wrong answers. Whenever you are practicing, on main idea questions, in the initial days, every single option, ask yourself, is it overstating, understating? That is how you will learn this concept. That is how you will become very perfect in this concept. And once you are perfect in this overstating and understating, then I don't think you will face much problems in main idea questions. Because main idea questions are not very difficult. And at the most, you will get only one question that on main idea, not more than one. Okay, have I made myself clear? Did you understand thoroughly how we will solve main idea questions? What are the things that we need to be careful about?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we will practice more, but later we will practice more on main idea, overstating, understating. But before that, I would also like to complete the second question type, which is called supporting idea. Now, supporting idea questions, remember, you will get multiple questions from supporting idea. They are the easiest questions that will appear. Easiest questions that will appear for you in your exam. And they are very scoring. They are very, very scoring. Why? Because supporting idea questions, they ask you about something that is very directly, very clearly stated in the passage. It is right there in front of you. It is very directly, very clearly stated in the passage. You just need to find out the point where it is stated. So remember, these questions refer to a point made by the author, but they refer to a minor point, not the main point. So answer is right there in front of you. Answer will be right there in front of you. Where is the answer? Where is the answer? For that, GRE sometimes makes it very, very easy for you. Sometimes GRE will tell you, in line number 12, author mentions this because. So where do you go for the answer? Go to line number 12. Or the author will say, in paragraph number 2, author mentions hungry lizard because. So where do you go? In paragraph number 2. Sometimes he will not give you line numbers and paragraph numbers. Okay. Sometimes he will not give you line numbers. Sometimes he will not give you paragraph number. What they sometimes do is that they will put an arrow in front of that paragraph from which the question is drawn. So the passage mentions hungry lizard because wherever is the answer, they will put an arrow before that paragraph. So you know that this is the area where I have to find the answer. Sometimes they will not give you anything. No line number, no paragraph number, no arrow. In that case, you will have to use some other strategy, right? So what is that strategy? I'll just uh, explain it to you. Supporting idea questions are the easiest questions, and there are multiple questions because the answer to these questions will be mentioned directly in the passage. It is right there in front of you. You just need to find out the point. Where is it mentioned? That's it. So whenever you are answering a supporting idea question, you must find a point in the passage from which the question is drawn. Once you spot the sentence to which the question refers, you must read a few sentences before and after it. That means if you think the answer is in line number 13, just read 2 lines before and 2 lines after. This entire portion will give you the answer. Now, if they mention the line number, paragraph number, or if they give you an arrow, then it becomes very easy. Let's say you are in a situation where they don't do any of these things. Then how will you come to the answer? Then you will come to the answer. You will find the point in the passage from which the question is drawn by selecting. Select a word or a phrase from the question step. From the question, select a word or phrase that you will hang on to. You will scan for that word or phrase in the paragraph. Wherever you find that word or phrase, you will concentrate over there, and then you can easily find your answer. Okay, are you getting my point? So supporting idea questions are very, very easy because it's right there in front of you. Answer is right there. You just need to find the point. That's it. And good news is that there are multiple questions. How will you come to know that this is a supporting idea question? He will use words like this. The author mentions, the author cites, the author states. These are things that these are the words that he will use. The only way in which he can make it a little bit complicated is that instead of asking you what he mentions, he will add the word do not, does not. The passage does not mention which of the following. That is also very simple. Whichever is mentioned, eliminate them. Whichever is not mentioned is the answer. So by introducing the word not, what is not mentioned in the passage, they try to make it a little bit complex. Otherwise, supporting idea questions are the easiest questions that you will come across. Now let's see. Let's see how it works. You can see over here, it says, this passage says, it is frequently assumed that the mechanization of work has a revolutionary effect on the lives of the people who operate the new machines and on the society into which the machines have been introduced. Historians, particularly those investigating the history of women, now seriously question this assumption of transforming power. They conclude that such dramatic technological innovations as the spinning jenny, the sewing machine, the typewriter, and the vacuum cleaner have not resulted in equally dramatic social changes in women's economic position or in the prevailing evaluation of women's work. The employment of young women in textile mills during the Industrial Revolution was largely an extension of an older pattern of employment of young single women as domestics. It was not the change in office technology, but rather the separation of secretarial work, previously seen as an apprenticeship for beginning managers, from administrative work, that in the 1880s created a new class of dead-end jobs, thenceforth considered women's work. The increase in the numbers of married women employed outside the home in the 20th century had less to do with the mechanization of housework and an increase in leisure time for these women than it did with their own economic necessity and with high marriage rates that shrank the available pool of single women workers. Previously, in many cases, the only women employers would hire. Now, there were two questions on supporting. This is a real passage that has appeared in your GRE exam, right? The first question is saying, the author mentions all of the following inventions as examples of dramatic technological innovations, except the what is not mentioned. Now, let's say you don't know where is the answer, what is the answer. What will you do? You will pick up a word or phrase from the question and try to find out this word or phrase in the passage. So we'll take a look at dramatic technological innovations. So what is not mentioned? He's asking us what is not mentioned. Where do we find dramatic technological innovations? Let's go back. Let us scan. When we scan, we see that it is mentioned over here. That means my answer is in this portion. If I read this portion, I'll come to the answer. So I will start from here. Historians, particularly those investigating the history of women, now seriously question this assumption of transforming power. They conclude that such dramatic technological innovations as the number 1, spinning jenny, number 2, sewing machine, number 3, typewriter, and vacuum cleaner have not resulted in equally dramatic social changes in women's economic position or in the prevailing evaluation of women's work. So he has mentioned spinning jenny, sewing machine, typewriter, vacuum cleaner. Let's go back. He has mentioned sewing machine, vacuum cleaner, typewriter, and spinning jenny. These were mentioned. So question is, don't forget this. Author mentions all of the following except. So what is not mentioned? Telephone is not mentioned. Yes or no? Was it telephone? Yeah. Telephone is not mentioned. So my answer is going to be telephone. Simple. It can be as easy as this. Okay. Next one. The passage states that. States means supporting idea question. The passage states that before the 20th century, which of the following was true of many employers? Now, if I don't know what is the answer, I will pick up anything. I can pick up employers. I can pick up 20th century. What does the passage state? That before the 20th century, what was true of many employers? So let's go back. I will scan for 20th century and employers. Where do we find 20th century and employers?
Fifth line, second para, sir.
Where?
Fifth line, second para, so 20th century.
I think it is nowhere in the first paragraph. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
We find it here, 20th century and employers is here. That means I need to focus here. If I read this, what is it saying? The increase, I'll start from here. The increase in the numbers of married women. Now, numbers, even though we follow British English and we think that this word is wrong, numbers, but Americans, they consider it to be correct. So this is an American exam. So many times you will find this word numbers. The increase in the numbers of married women employed outside the home in the 20th century had less to do with the mechanization of housework and an increase in leisure time for these women than it did with their own economic necessity and with high marriage rates that shrank the available pool of single women workers. Previously means before the 20th century. Previously, in many cases, the only women employers would hire. So previously means before the 20th century, employers would hire only women who were single. Yes or no? That is what he's trying to say. But what happened in the 20th century? More and more number of women started getting married. These women had economic necessities. So they started working. It's not that the married women started working because they had machines for their housework. No, it had less to do because of mechanization of housework. It's not that they had machines to complete their household work and they had a lot of leisure time. No, that is not the reason. More and more number of married women started working because they had economic necessity, and marriage rates had also become very high. And that is why the pool of single women workers, it shrank. But previously, only women the employers would hire, they were what? Single women workers. That is what he's saying, right? So if somebody asks me what did employers do before the 20th century, I can say that they hired women who were single. Let me take you back to question number 2. The passage states that before the 20th century, which of the following was true of many employers? Number A, they did not employ women in factories. Nothing of this sort was mentioned. They tended to employ single rather than married women. Yes, that is what they preferred. Number C, they employed women in only those jobs that were related to women's traditional household work. That's not true. The number C is not true. Number C is what happened during the Industrial Revolution. It is true that this happened, but this happened during the Industrial Revolution, not before the 20th century. You can't say that. So number C is also not right. They means the employers. The employers resisted technological innovations that would radically change women's role in the family. Nothing of that sort was mentioned. They never resisted innovations. Number E, they hired women only when qualified men were not available to fill the open positions. That is also not true. That was not mentioned. So answer will be number B, right? Okay. Did you understand?
Yes, sir.
So it's as simple as this. Supporting idea questions are as simple as this. Okay, so I think with this thought, we will end this session today. We learned about main idea and we discussed supporting ideas. When we meet next on Saturday, we will practice on these two concepts. We will practice on supporting ideas and main ideas. I'll show you some paragraph, some passages, and then we will go and discuss other question types.